Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a regular video. Wow, an actual
What?
episode review. It feels like it's been ages just because we keep getting sweet, sweet Doctor Who news.
We do.
And we thought we might be getting more sweet, sweet Doctor Who news this weekend, but it's only a little teaser so far. And there's not really much off to go off that, so we're just going to wait and see what else happens. But yes, this is our regular content where we review episodes of Doctor Who that we've already seen. Yay!
Hooray!
We started with series 1 back in 2005, and we're now at series 7, episode 4 of series 7 of Doctor Who, The Power of Three.
Yes.
Yay! This one stars at least 5 main characters. We've got the Doctor, Amy, and Rory, and we've got the introduction of Kate Stewart, and we've got the reintroduction of Brian, Rory's dad. And I'd say those 5 are the key players in this episode. Some weird little cube things, black cubes, just show up one day. Nobody knows why, and they're there for like 6 months, something like that.
Longer now. It's like a year.
Oh, there you go, a year. Nothing happens, and then all of a sudden everything happens, and the Doctor and his team have to figure out what happened and stop the bad guy, who is
A bad guy in all regards.
Yep, there is certainly a villainous man. Yep, that did this.
He had a plan and he carried it out. And
certainly did failed. And there was no punishment at all. Just gone. What did you think of this episode?
It makes me sad. I feel like this would be an absolute classic if it weren't for about 5 minutes near the end. I think the first 33 minutes and the last 2 minutes are genuinely great. And then unfortunately, when a certain someone appears, it just has to fall apart. And it makes me sad because it's not their fault. They had to polish a turd in regards to that. But we still have to kind of judge the episode as it is, sadly. But also I feel like I'm kind of guilty of, when we say like, okay, yeah, the cliffhanger ending was great, but there's a whole episode before that was like, I feel like I'm guilty of maybe treating this the opposite way. Like, yeah, the ending's new, but there is a really, really great episode prior to it for most of the run. So I actually really, really enjoyed it. And I do think it is unfortunately soured by things beyond their control. But there's still a lot to love about it. And I was about to just list my positives, but we'll get to that. In particular, yeah, I still really, really like it. I think it's such a shame that it's kind of let down by explaining what's going on. And Chibnall apparently over-explains. But yeah, it's a shame that when we actually find out what's happening, it's like, what? What's the plan here? What's the talent? What are you talking? Like, is this what's going on? And again, that's not what was written. We'll never see what was written because they didn't film it because of a certain man. So that's sad. We're never going to see exactly how this was supposed to be resolved. Certainly not by pointing the sonic screwdriver at a screen. Unfortunately, that's what we got, and that definitely scuppers the impact the episode could have had. Because I think the build-up is fantastic, and unfortunately, it kind of falls flat a bit near the end, and then picks up again right at the end with that last scene with Brian and everything. But it's just such a shame. Like, if only like it was like, oh, it's a shit beginning, but it ends. Holy shit, that's great. Unfortunately, it's the bad way round. The way round we'd rather it not be. So that definitely deducts some enjoyment, sadly, even if it is beyond their control. But for the majority of the episode, I genuinely have a really great time, especially because this isn't one I revisit that much because of that ending. There was a lot of things I completely forgotten about, and it was a really funny episode, I think, for the most part as well, which I appreciated. It was great to see Kate's introduction as well, because I hadn't watched that in a very long time. So yeah, there's a lot of like very pleasant surprises, and then the bad thing that I was expecting was still bad, sadly.
Yeah. I think that's pretty fair. I think my thoughts are I like a lot of what they do in this episode. It just falls apart when they introduce the threat, I guess, the threat, or at least they reveal who's behind the threat. I think that's where the episode just lets itself down, unfortunately. And that's what people remember it for. If it's got a crap ending, people are only ever going to remember that. They're not going to remember all the good stuff that comes before it. Just think of Game of Thrones. Everybody's really annoyed at the ending of Game of Thrones, and therefore nobody talks about it anymore.
Yeah, this episode is 41 minutes long. I think this might be one of the shortest episodes of New Who. But there's 35 minutes that are really, really good.
Yeah.
But sadly, people just remember the 6 that are bad.
Yeah. So yes, we do have positives and negatives, normally 3 of each. I believe it's your turn to go first this week. So go for it. What's your first positive?
And my first positive is the concept.
Okay, yeah.
What a concept. I like, a lot of the time they try and scupper the Doctor with like, oh, there's more Daleks than there's ever been before, but they just blow them all up anyway, or oh, they're deadlier than ever. This is the Doctor's greatest threat yet.
The Doctor's most powerful villain.
Enemy
yet.
So I like the idea of like the Doctor's greatest villain is actually just having to be patient and just wait and see what happens. And very much like Pertwee era, he was exiled to Earth by the Time Lords for like 3/4 of his entire run. So to see him kind of grounded again and units showing up, that's nice. I think that's a cool idea to kind of, he's forced to live with his companions. You get a sense of it like the Lodger. It's kind of like testing the waters, I guess, for a story like this. But to actually see him spend time with the companions that he's been traveling with for like 2.5 years at this point, I just think that's a fun idea. And framing it around the perspective, I just think it's neat.
Yeah, that's all I can think.
I just had to say, I had to get it. But framing it from like the point of view of the companions, particularly the soon to be departed companions,
dead ones.
Yes, yes, it's true. I think that's a cool thing to kind of highlight and celebrate them before their departure, and the idea of the life that the Doctor's left behind and what happens when he's not there, being torn between living a normal family life on Earth, or do we carry on traveling? And it's a great way of highlighting how far particularly Amy's character's come, because I think we would have always been happy with that kind of lifestyle. But Amy she's shown a lot of growth past couple of seasons anyway, but particularly this episode, just seeing them be all domestic and happy is very wholesome. And like the idea of a slow invasion, and they just have no idea what's going on with all these bloody cubes, but then they make Twitter accounts for them, they make TV shows surrounding them. It's absolutely what we would do. They would just become a natural thing that we just keep around. They're just like Funko Pops basically, and that everyone has. They're free Funko Pops, so of course you're going to just keep them all around. And
it's free. People will take it, so it's fine.
Exactly. So I think that idea of like a slow invasion is really cool, and how they kind of explore that and the worldwide implications of it and everything is really, really fun. And I think this era in particular, I mean, the previous era did like the big scope invasions quite a lot. So you have like the news reports of all over the world and stuff. And I like most of like the modern day stories for this era. You didn't need to do that because they've been very small scale. So you're not going to have the news reports and everything. But when they do, like, Wedding of River Song and stuff, they kind of do show it. It's a very small scale invasion. So I like that they've kind of delved back into that territory with this one when it's required, because most of their modern day Earth set stories in this era don't pertain to like worldwide invasions and stuff. So it was nice to kind of, dip a toe back into that side of things and explore that. So it was a fun idea. Sadly kind of squandered by things outside their control, but I do think the idea of forcing the Doctor to just stay around on Earth, and the fact that he just gets bored of it and like, oh, I'm going to piss off anyway, I like the challenge that presents. Much more of a threat than the Shakri guy is actually just having to sit and wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It is, it is an interesting concept, and the fact that the Doctor sort of, he even has his own arc where he sort of doesn't want to wait, and then towards the end he's kind of like, well, I will. I'm happy to sit and wait now. I'm not going to leave. Yeah. So I like that little arc as well. Mine sort of, my first one kind of links to that. It's just I don't really know how to put it into it, but like just the character building, I guess, the character focus, to focus on the people in this episode rather than rather than it being a big threat that's the main focus. That's the driver, but a lot of the stuff in this is about Amy, Rory, and the Doctor, and to some extent Kate Stewart and Brian, all them going about their sort of daily lives and how the Doctor and these alien invasions sort of impact them. And I like that idea. I like that we get to see more of Amy and Rory at home, and sort of they get a bit more fleshed out in terms of their personal life. I like that we get to see sort of again the Doctor go on that little bit of character development from wanting to just be there instantly to sort of being like, okay, I'm gonna chill now, I'm gonna slow down. And I think that's the strongest point of the episode, is the character side of things, and it's something that Chris Chibnall obviously does very well, because he does it in his era as well. You can see that here. It works very well. He's done it well in Broadchurch, and you can see based on this episode why they thought he'd be a good choice to run the show, because he does have that character.
He does some very good, like, tortured, character-driven ones as well.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got that in his locker, and I think this is. It tried and failed with 42. I think that was sort of his first attempt at this kind of thing. We're trying to sort of separate them off and have them a bit more like in depth. But I think with this being a smaller cast, and kind of already pre-established characters, he kind of has that more room to be a bit more flexible with sort of what he does with them. And I think it's great. I think it's definitely the highlight of the episode, and that's why I'm like kind of wish that they could have just. I know they couldn't because it needs to be an alien threat, but they could have just done one where it turns out the cubes you just never know who put them there, and they just don't do anything, and then that's it. It's just that I'll be like, oh, the Doctor's been with us for a year, but nothing's changed, so we're gonna ignore them, and then they just fade off, and then that's it.
Every episode, Doctor Who after some holiday pass tubes around. I would love that. It's so funny.
You could, and then that there's things there where you could say that leads up, and you could pay it off in the future if you wanted to. But I do like the character side of things in this. I think it is the episode's strongest point, and that's probably what saves it. If the character work wasn't as good, then this episode would not be getting much praise otherwise. But yes, what's your second positive?
I guess it kind of leans into that somewhat, but I've put like the family unit, if you will, of the Doctor.
They're sort of my additional positive, the trio. The power of three.
The power of three, very much so. The family unit. And we've seen companions in the past. They have their own families and stuff, and they've kind of explored that. And I don't think there was much more they could do with the idea of like companions having families and stuff. They kind of covered up the basis. So I like that, with the Ponds and with this era, they've kind of done something a bit different. And the Doctor and the companions that he has themselves have become like that family, especially when you throw River into the mix and everything with that. I think that's a really cool way of doing it, and exploring it through this way makes sense when he's been part of their lives for like 10 years at this point, and they've gone years and years without seeing each other at certain aspects, and the whole idea of them maybe drifting apart from this lifestyle, or should they even give it up, should they not? It's great, and there's so many little moments between them. It helps, the chemistry between the three of them is so good, and I really like all the little dynamics between them all in this one. A very wholesome moment was for me when the Doctor's kind of passing time and he's doing the keepy uppy, and he gets to 100, and immediately he's like, Amy, he wants to tell her they got to 100. I think that's just so wholesome. When they're all eating fish fingers and custard together, that's very sweet. There's a little moment as well with Amy and Rory just have a little moment to themselves, and then like, where's the Doctor? Oh, he's on the Wii again. They're just kind of, they have a child. And just seeing those two like domestic and happy, it's like a world away from how they were with each other at the start of series 5. So it's just fun getting to live in the moment with them. And the characters bounce off together so well. And I think a lot of it culminates in probably my favorite scene of the episode, when the Doctor and Amy are talking about her decision to maybe go outside of the Tower of London. When they're talking there, and he's like, first face, this face, or all of that. And I think that's such a lovely moment as well, and a very real conversation between these two best friends. So just, it's a great showcase of how far these three have kind of come in as individuals, and also in their little pairs within the trio and as a trio itself. It's such a great TARDIS team. Definitely one of my favorite TARDIS teams, I think. And yeah, as you said, like without their stuff and their character stuff in this episode, there wouldn't be much to write home about. And it absolutely is very much the star of the show, and all their scenes together, you know, and then with the inclusion of, you know, some other characters, which I will talk about later. You know, it has a lot of heart to the episode, and I think that's what does carry it through up until the point. It's like, okay, I guess we need to wrap up this plot now. But the strongest stuff is definitely what comes before that. And I think, you know, the Doctor and his interactions with the Ponds and just the three of them, and showcasing how their characters have changed and grown, is definitely an absolute highlight of this episode, because they've had 2.5 years to build them up as a family, and then like, okay, you're in lockdown now, spend all this time together. And the, you know, I don't know if this would work with other Doctor companion dynamics. It's certainly not in the same way, because you know, they've certainly built them up as like this family. You think of the end of the Doctor, they put in the wardrobe and stuff. You know, they set the table place for him. Whereas, you know, before they've had to convince the Doctor to stay for Christmas dinner, but you know, he's just like, screw it. You know, they're setting up that place for him. So it's very wholesome. And they definitely, the three of them and their bond, particularly knowing like, well, this is going to end horribly next week. You know, there's a bit of sweetness to it, I guess. And I'm glad they really had a plot line where they could let that shine even more so than it already does. And I think it very much succeeds.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Again, we've spoken about what the character stuff in this is great. And you know, they obviously, without those three, I think it's difficult. And there's not really been a companion, a TARDIS team sort of like it since or before, because of that sort of closeness they all have, and there's no risk of romanticizing any of them, or either any of them with who they're not supposed to be romanticized with, which I think also helps with this, because there's no longer that worry of, oh, they might, you know, it's just all platonic, or you know, as it should be, which is good. Sticking with characters, my second positive is the introduction of Kate Stewart.
Yeah, that's my third.
Yay!
I've kind of, my third is like the supporting characters, as in Brian and Kate.
Kate and Brian, I've separated mine, although Brian's not my third. But yes, introduction of Kate, great. She's great. I think just the way she sort of comes into the room and she immediately like commands the scene, I guess. You know, you can tell there's a presence. Obviously, it's a nice sort of reference to Classic Who as well, with the Brigadier, which I'm sure they won't hammer home in a future season.
They do it like 3 times, and people make a meme of it.
No, I know. But I think it was the Cyberman Brigadier that people really were like.
People decided like 5 years later, oh, I don't like that.
Of course, classic Doctor
Who fans.
But yeah, I think she's great in this. You know, I think she doesn't have too many scenes, but the one she's in, she's got a presence. And yeah, you know, it's a strong character, and it's a sort of unique character that Doctor Who, at least this series, hasn't really had that much of. Well, not this series, but this, you know, New Who hasn't really kind of had. I think Martha was sort of the prototype for this character, I think.
Yeah.
And then they've sort of embodied that with Kate Stewart, with an actor that's probably not as in demand as Freema Agyeman is. So it's easy for them to
say
that Freema Agyeman is in demand. She was doing her show, her New Amsterdam show.
Yes,
but you know,
she's still in that, definitely.
Well, yeah, it's finished now as well, anyway, so it doesn't matter.
It's nearly done, yeah.
But yeah, so I think you know, she's a great character. She has some great moments with the Doctor and with sort of Amy and the Doctor when they're sort of walking through all the cube enclosures, and sort of how she has faith in the Doctor, even that, you know, only meeting him, this is the first time she's ever met him, but she immediately knows, yeah, whatever you want to do, mate, I'm on board with, because she obviously has that family history with him. And yeah, it's a nice character. I'm glad that she's stuck around for as long as she has. I think the longevity sort of plays a part in this, because if this was a one-off character, maybe there's an element of, oh, it's good, but you know, there's nothing there. But knowing
it'd have been a sweet reference, but like that's
and now knowing sort of parts she plays in the future down the road with Day of the Doctor, with Peter Capaldi's series finale, and even with Power of the Doctor as well. You know, the
Zygon
role she plays. Yeah, and it's great having her in this. It's
and
great having
beyond.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, she will be back for series 14. And it's nice having this sort of grounded character that knows about alien threats on Earth. You know, you could argue you had a similar element of that with Captain Jack in series, you know, at the end of series 4, but there hasn't really been that through line through everything. And UNIT hasn't really had a facial presence really in the show properly, a consistent one. Since it came back. You know, you had Martha in her 2-parter in series 4, but she'd left UNIT by the time the end of time came round, so there was no chance of sort of that coming back into play. And you know, the general guy from the Sontaran 2-parter died. The one from Journey's End died. The American one, he died. So there's not been that through line, and to introduce this character, you know, with the backstory that's sort of already established, already makes her sort of like a fan favorite sort of off the back. It gives her an upper hand. But I think the embodiment of that in this is excellent, and I'm glad that it wasn't like, I mean, it might have been, but from my memory, that it wasn't spoken about before, where they're like, oh, Doctor Who's gone woke and recasting the Brigadier as a woman, because you know for a fact that if that was done now,
Absolutely,
people would be furious for no reason. So I'm glad that it did that at the time that it did, before it was a hot topic. But it's also good to have that character anyway. So yes, your is the other support characters, Kate and Brian.
Kate and Brian, yes, I've kind of merged them in because
and the guy that got stuck in the toilet. Don't forget him.
The guy got stuck again. Oh, what a guy. I hope he's okay. Imagine if he had a heart attack and died stuck in the toilet.
Oh God, way to go. Okay, pretty shit.
R.I.P. Elvis. But yes, the supporting characters. I mean, you basically said everything about Kate that I would have said. You know, there's particularly with this story, there's such a warmth to her that I think is very wholesome and comforting. And I like her interactions with, you know, Amy and the Doctor. And when Amy's like, I like her, he's like, yeah. It's just it's kind of effortless, I think, in how she's written and performed in this one. Like her introduction, instantly likable right from her first line.
It's as if she's been there the whole time. It's really kind of like a character walking back in, and you're like, oh yeah, Kate.
Yeah, it really feels like she has history. But you know, we haven't seen. Well, technically, she does, because this isn't Kate Stewart's first live action appearance. But yeah, it's great to kind of, you know, see her introduction here, and I think Gemma Redgrave is, you know, fantastic in that part right from the off. So yeah, everything you said about her, basically, I really enjoy. And the idea that she doesn't really want to get, you know, too much praise for her name, so she kind of takes the Lethbridge out. All of that. And you know, they could have very easily just had like the stereotypical character, and he's like, no, I know what I'm doing, I'm in charge.
A typical UNIT general salt person. That's sort of,
you know, sometimes stratagem guy. Like, are you sure this is what we should be doing? Shut up. But yeah, so it's refreshing to kind of be like, she just straight on board, like, what do we do? So that's great. I love her, and obviously Brian is a king. I would die for him. Brian's log. I wish we could have seen him just record all of them. I'd have watched that for 45 minutes.
What a great.
That would have been wonderful. And the way he says UNIT instead of unit. I love that. So he's a great little presence as well. You know, it's often kind of gift, I think, the scene where he's just being wheeled away on the trolley and he's just staring like that. You know, it's great that Mark Williams could come back again for another time in this one. And he has some wonderful, like, funny moments like that, but also the scene where he's like, what happens to all the people who travel with you? And he's like shit's serious now. I like that he has that side to him as well.
And he's the only one to notice that Amy and Rory are in different clothes and have aged slightly. You know, he's like, they are different. What have you done?
My son looks older. What gives? You fool. So yeah, that I love that side to him. That, you know, he's not a dumb man either. He's played for laughs and stuff, and the fact that he stays in the TARDIS for 4 days, just watching the queues. So, doesn't time fly when you're alone with your thoughts? He's just great. I love him. It's almost, I think it's genuinely a good thing that they couldn't film that scene for Angels Take Manhattan that they were supposed to film with him, because I think that would have destroyed me. I don't
heart,
think I could have seen him act that
No.
out, because that would have been awful.
Mm.
But yeah, he's fantastic, and I love that kind of serious moment with him. And at the end, when you know, he's kind of experienced now, saving the world twice technically, saving a spaceship and then saving the world, I suppose.
Yep.
So I think
saving lives.
Yes.
Saving lives.
So
Yeah.
he comes around to the idea like, yeah, you should go. You should go with him. Who else has that chance? And he's like, just bring them back safe. And you're never going to see them again. That's it.
It's the last chance.
You're never going to see them again. It's just so bittersweet and sad. As soon as he said that, I was like, oh yeah, they're dying next week. But yeah, it's so great to kind of have him pop a couple of times in this, and you know, in an episode that's kind of fleshing out Amy Rory's personal lives and celebrating them before they go. It makes sense to have Brian brought back in it straight away.
Yeah.
And you know, Chris General just writes that kind of character very, very well, as we talked about in Dinosaurs on the Spaceship.
Yeah.
So yeah, very limited kind of supporting cast for the most part in this one, but you know, we do have two standout characters. You know, Brian, who's still remembered to this day, even though this is his last appearance, and Kate, who 12 years on is still in the show. You know, that's really cool to see. You know, them kind of have a lot to do in this one as well. Well, I say a lot to do. We'll talk about that. But so yeah, I very much enjoyed the main supporting characters in this one, shall we say. So yeah, lots of great character stuff in this one.
Yeah, I think that's for sure. My final positive, I'm gonna give a shout out to the makeup department. The Shakri makeup, although we don't see it very much, is gross and great, and it's really well done. And then the weird like cube face boys.
My bonus positive is the cube face boys.
They
look horrible.
I hate them.
Disturbing.
I never want to see them again. They do nothing, and I never want to see them again. Just the way he like pulls down the mask, it's just there. I'm like,
yeah, they're literally like the slabs from Smith and Jones. They show up in a hospital, they do nothing and leave.
Yeah, that's it. That's what they are. But they look better. You know, they're the slabs.
They do. They're not just in
big bike suits. Yeah. So you know, I think that's a standout. You know, is that sort of the makeup work for that. We can throw in the set design there as well. You know, it's a story set on Earth with some cubes. It's not necessarily the most sort of difficult thing to, you know, you could easily be really bland with the set design for this. But I think the way that Amy and Roy's house is shot, sort of the way Unit is done in the Tower of London, I think it all very much feels real and grounded, which you could have easily just phoned it in for this one, with it being, you know, effectively a bottle episode with it just being set on Earth and nothing else. You could have just sort of not had to worry about it. But you know, they go all out as well when they go to the Savoy with the Zygons.
Yeah.
And they tease us with a story that's better than the one we got. But but you know, they still put in the set design for that, which is nice. The costume design and makeup for, you know, Amy and Rory getting all done up and stuff. You know, just for literally like 3 scenes, I think it's done really well. But yeah, that's my final main positive. My only other ones was Brian, obviously the trio, and some of the humor, such as the chicken dance cube, which I find hilarious. As soon as they open the door, Amy's face looks like, oh, God.
That was all over online after this episode. Just changing what song was playing. It's like, you know, never going to give you up. Seeing that all the time, and it's great.
It's hilarious. And yeah, there are some good funny moments in this. References to K9 as well. When the cube starts floating around. When how excited Brian is,
just like fighting for his life.
Yeah. That's
how do you cope with one heart? It's pitiful the way you did it. That's so good.
They're all excellent. And yeah, I think the humor is excellent for this one. So have you got any other additional positives?
Just Cube Face Boy, really. But I kind of agree with you, like the production stuff, like the aesthetics of the episode. I think, you know, it all gels together very well. You know, like their individual episode, like movie kind of things that they were going for with 7A. I think it all works together well. You don't really see the inside of the Shakri ship that much, but you do get that big establishing shot, and I think, you know, it looks interesting enough. And you know, the actual design of the spaceship that you see from the outside, I think is really cool. So, you know, there's a lot of good elements to it. And yeah, the Shakri design, we were supposed to see a lot more of that, obviously, and he wasn't supposed to be a hologram. So that's an unexpected budget going on special effects there. So it's a
Yep.
shame that we didn't get to see all those hours in a makeup chair. Really worth it. It just really stings all these years later. But you can't deny that it does look great. It's a shame about the man who's wearing it, really. So yeah, there's a few extra little things to enjoy about this one, I suppose.
Yeah, that's fair. However, despite enjoying some things about this, we will have to talk about the negatives of the episode. So, what is?
Where do we begin?
what is your first negative of this?
The Sonic saves the day solution ending thing. It's just them staring at screen. Like, they obviously made it up on set. Like, we just have to write this scene in. Okay, and it unfortunately it shows. It's just, you know, Matt Smith pointing a sonic screwdriver at a piece of glass, and then the day is saved. So, you know, you have the caveat of this isn't their fault that the ending is crap, and the solution is crap. But in the final episode that we watched, the solution sadly is crap. You know, it doesn't help the complaints of like, the sonic screwdriver can do everything. I can't believe this alien piece of technology can do so much. You know, like, it hasn't been doing that for literally 50 years. So yeah, it's a shame that such a great build-up comes down to it's just such a nosedive in quality story-wise, and that's what really hurts. If it was just kind of like, this isn't a very good episode anyway, and then it carries on with that, like, well, par for the cause, but it's not really. It's just a nosedive as you get to the solution, and it's such a shame that it just comes down to that. You know, it's very uninspired and boring, and I still don't understand what their plan was. I still don't understand anything that was going on. I think there was some really interesting things there with like their religion and stuff, and they believe that the humanity is a plague and serving the tally or adding to the tally, whatever that bloody guy's talking about. If it had been coherent, if the man had shot all his scenes and actually said and didn't refuse to say most of his stuff, so they had to literally copy and paste together the usable footage to get him to say even 2 sentences. Maybe there's some really interesting stuff there. We're never going to know. So sadly, it's just an incoherent kind of babble of as a solution to the episode, which is a crying shame.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's kind of hit my first sort of 2 negatives in one, really. Because say what we want, but the main negative of this, we're going to pick 3, but the main negative is that ending. And so sort of my sort of first 2 is basically there's no real villain, because there's not really a villain. It's the guy that shows up and goes, I need to do this, and then he's not even there. Then he's gone. So
I bet he was supposed to be blown up in that ship like Solomon was, but they had to just make him a hologram to make it make sense that he had weird dialogue.
So, you know, there's something there that they could have done, you know, and they probably would have done, you know, it's hard to put it on that, but in the context of the episode, it's just not good. I don't know what his plan was. Put the cubes there, get them all to kill half the population with heart attacks, I guess, and then leave.
Yeah, then send another wave to kill the rest.
Do
you not have to send enough to do it all in one go? Like,
there's loads of cubes. Just do it again. Just blow up the planet. You've got this big ship. Just blow up the planet. But yeah, so that's the whole thing. You know, there is an opportunity there for it to be really interesting with like where it's come from. You know, the Doctor's there about it being like fairy tales, and you know, I know of this thing, and there's that whole element of something there being there, but obviously for other reasons it's not, and it's not there for this one. It's just bad. And then the other one is just the quick fix of we're in, we've done it, goodbye. They're in and out in 2 seconds.
Hooray.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right then. I wanted a bit more, maybe just even a bit more techno babble, you know, just give me
it's
something.
like playing one of the adventure games. Like, it would hold more weight if you're actually doing it and like, I'm pressing the button to use the Sonic on this screen, but we're just watching that happen and it's nowhere near as interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, they can't even have done something like, I'm going to sacrifice myself and stay on board, because there's not another character there that you would want to kill off. Well, yeah, he's the one that would be like, Brian, I'm going to do it. I'm on. You go and have your, you know, and there's that. But I don't know if that sort of plays into it. If they maybe knew the guy was going to be a bit shit, they could have written around that and had another character that they've introduced that's like, whatever. Rory's doctor friend maybe tags along and goes, "I'm going to kill myself."
Yeah, the little girl. Yeah, just ignored for so long.
Exactly. But yeah, I think that it merges into two. My first and second is just there's no real villain, there's no real backstory to it, there's no real plot, no real plan, and then it's just solved in literally 5 seconds with exposition of going, "I can stop this. But done. Let's leave." And
are they going to try again?
Well, yeah, exactly.
There's no reason why they shouldn't. But
no, because they could just send someone else. If it's a hologram, especially, it's not like you've stopped the person. You've just blown up their space. They could come back anytime. Maybe they will, and maybe they'll actually have an actor this time that wants to do the role. And
what will save that ending is a Target novelization.
It probably will
just do what they wanted to do.
Not wrong, because they would be able to write it, and nobody would be able to tell them otherwise. But the issue with people not really liking the episode is it's probably not going to get a Target. I say that, but Eaters of Light's got a Target novelization, so who knows? So I've just did my first and second. So what's your second and third?
What is my second and third? Let's have a look. Oh, I mean, kind of a coincidence that Rory's working at the place where one of these things is. It's like, well, that is very handy. Thank God for that. And Brian's just decided to tag along and help, even though he doesn't.
How convenient!
That's great. So that's just one of those things, but it is a coincidence nonetheless. It's kind of a bonus one that the plan's kind of unclear, but also like the plan just makes no sense. Not their fault, but it doesn't make any sense. And I think this one kind of just comes from rewatching it now. My last one, knowing that Kate's kind of a big recurring character, I just think she's a bit underused in this one. If it had been a one-off, then it would have been fine. Obviously, because like it is what it is, and she has a nice role to play in this episode. But I went into this thinking she was in it a lot more than she was, and it's like,
she's got like three-ish scenes, hasn't she? Like one where they break in, one where they first go to the Tower of London, then one when they go back, and then she tags along to the hospital, and then you don't see her again.
Yeah. So you get a nice little goodbye scene with her and everything to wrap it up all nicely, whatever. So if that had been all there was, then that would have been fine, because it would have been nice to just have that in there. But knowing that we get a lot more of her in years to come, I guess it's a bit greedy of me, and it certainly isn't a problem with the episode at the time. It is just now. I'm like, I want to see more Kate. Why are you not giving me more? So it is what it is. But when an episode is 41 minutes long, you have a few minutes you could give to Kate, maybe. But it is what it is. And again, that's just from 11 years later. I'm like, well,
more.
Kate's great. I want more now.
Yeah, that's fair. My sort of next negative is kind of I couldn't decide between this one and the bonus one, so they're kind of both the third negative. One is the reused shots of cubes just with numbers on them now. They're like exactly they had the establishing shots like 6 months later and like, the cubes are in the bin, they're on the cutlery tray, whatever, and then they just use those exact same shots, not even like changing the day to make it look like it's because it's nighttime when it's different time when the numbers show up. I think it's dark outside. It's like, well, this is just exactly the same. You just reuse the shots and just put the number in. So that's a bit, from a production standpoint, it's a little bit lazy. And then the narration.
This was a cheap one, wasn't it, for the first half of the series? For sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then the narration from Amy as well. You don't need it.
2 episodes in a row, you didn't need it.
Yeah, especially with I've put the power of 3 line at the end is.
They really like. So see why we've called it that. You see why we've called it that.
And so I wonder if how much of that narration at the end is an element of we didn't have enough because the guy was shit. Karen, can you come in and do a couple of ADR lines, please, so we can put it in the end?
Even the bit when they first arrive in the spaceship and like there's clear ADR, I'm like, where are we? Oh, blah, 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 blah. You film that later.
Yeah, so I think I can kind of forgive it, but there's no need for the narration. Maybe you want to start, maybe because you might have people tuning in for like the one-off because they are supposed to be individual episodes, so you might want to like catch people up and be like, here's what we've done. But at the same time, you're 2.5 seasons into this now. I don't think if people are jumping on now, it's their own fault. I just say you don't necessarily need to be like, but whatever.
It's not like it's the start of a season or anything, like.
No. And then my final bonus negative is Amy, I know a wedding is important, but it is being a bridesmaid is not the same commitment as going full time at a hospital. I know, I know
I
you're
know
like,
it's important to you.
I have to commit, like, yeah, to one day in 6 months' time. Rory has to be working for the next 6 months. That's slightly different. I was like, I mean, like, the doctor can get you back for that one day. You can't get Rory back for every single day in that 6 month period. It's kind of not the same thing.
They have to do fittings and
I
rehearsal
know,
dinner.
I know, and I know it very much felt like they're like, what's tying Amy down? I know, a wedding, and then even especially because they're like, they say she has a travel like job later on, like just do more around that, because that comes out of nowhere, is mentioned and then gone again. Just have her doing that, have her going somewhere, and like
Yeah, just say we want you to travel more rather than just writing it all from home. Yeah.
well, yeah, exactly, and I think that would be better, because then it at least shows the commitment over the long term rather than the commitment of one day in 6 months, which you're not going to get to go to anyway, love. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, they will never see you again.
No, but yeah, there's sort of just some nitpicks from this one. Have you got any other negatives?
I don't think so. I mean, everyone ignoring the little girl's kind of weird, but also the NHS staff are overworked, so they probably would. And also,
she might have just gone in and
bill
sat there. If it's a very busy thing, she might have just gone and sat there and not gone to speak to someone at a desk.
Yeah, but even then, like, I know she was like one of like the pillars for the plan to it, but I still don't know exactly what she like. Was that a
I
real
don't know
girl?
why she was there.
Was
I
it
don't know why
not?
she. I don't
What
know why
happened
she
to
was
her
there.
after they knocked her out? Like, we don't know.
She's just there to like monitor the station, isn't she, and make
something like that,
make sure
isn't it?
nobody
But
goes in. But then what are the nurse people like? What are the Q boys for then?
yeah, the plan makes no sense.
Why were they taking people? Was it just to study them for the hearts?
I would
Is
assume
that what it
so.
was? I can't remember if it said.
They didn't. I don't think they told us.
Just
If they did,
they killed the man that was like, I'm just here for a prescription. Why are you in a hospital for a prescription, mate? You should be a GP.
You're wasting the NHS time. Get him.
You're the problem here.
Get him out of here.
Yeah, they kill him and they take him away, and then when they get in with Brian, who's not dead, there's like no, but I think the implication of him like being like.
Did they even get everyone out before they blew up the ship?
I don't know. Well, that's what I think.
People just
dead. They must be dead.
I think they got Brian out. I think they just left the rest. They all died.
Yeah. So I guess
it's almost as if they had to cut so much.
I know, right?
Out
because you usually say like, oh, these are people that we took from around the world to like study them and find like the optimal electronic
reason why it took so long.
Yeah. But
sadly, if that stuff did exist, it didn't make the final cut.
No, it did not. What time? Well, it's fine. We have some fun facts though, hopefully now, and maybe we can shed some light on what's happened with the end.
No, surely not. Let's have a look here. Okay. The working title for this episode was Cubed. You'll be surprised to know. So either way, it's literally the same title if you think about it.
Yeah, it is.
The logo features the texture of the Shakri cubes. The episode revolves around continuing the unique sequences for Series 7A. One of the voice messages at the start of the episode regards some reading glasses being ready for collection at the optician. Amy's seen with these reading glasses in the following episode, and 11 goes on to wear them for the rest of his run.
Heartbreaking.
I know, right? The scene featuring Henry VIII was intended to show the trio returning to get Rory's phone charger that had been mentioned he left behind in a town called Mercy, though this wasn't specifically stated in the final episode.
You can just see it though.
I read this before, but I saw that it is next. So that's nice. And Amy accidentally marrying Henry VIII, father of Elizabeth I, makes her the Doctor's mother-in-law twice, which I find very funny.
Nice. I guess, I mean, you could say, because they talk about Para 3 where he's like, oh, you left your phone there. You could probably switch these two around and not too much changed. You could have Para 3 be set before Town Called Mercy, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose you get,
because I don't think they could still leave and then go to Town Called Mercy and then die. I don't think there's anything.
As long as they die at the end, it doesn't matter which order.
Yeah, exactly. And arguably, it might have a greater impact if you did that round, because the whole episode is about the Doctor needing somebody there to sort of rein him in a bit, and then for them to die next could, But
yeah, never mind. It is what it is. Chris Chibnall is the first non-showrunner at the time to have more than one story featured in the same series, having already written Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. So good for Chibnall. General stated his goal. Good for her. He stated his goal for this episode was to tell a story from Amy and Rory's perspective and celebrate them before their departure in the following episode. Spoilers.
Well, certainly did that.
He did do that very well. Unfortunately, there was a plot as well. The doctors discussed that the mention of Twitter was a reflection of Matt Smith's decision to stay off the social network. Wise.
Yeah.
Little do you know, it gets worse, Matt.
While his mum knows, his mum's on Twitter.
That's true. Good old Vin. Chibnall requested bringing Unit and Kate into the story, and Moffat agreed. Kate Stewart was originally introduced in 1995 made-for-video independent production Downtime, which saw Nicholas Courtney, Elizabeth Sladen, and Deborah Watling reprise their roles as the Brigadier, Sarah Jane, and Victoria, respectively, to battle the Great Intelligence. Oh, we won't be hearing that anytime soon. Certainly not 2 episodes' time. The character was reworked for her debut in the series, you'll be surprised to know, to be running Unit. And there you go. The rest was history.
Nice.
This was the final episode Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill shot for the series. I'm sorry, guys. And the Doctor, Amy, and Rory stepping into the TARDIS after saying goodbye to Brian was the last scene they shot. They said as soon as they walked into the box and closed the doors, they burst into tears, which is very sad. But yeah, it's sad. Around 100 physical cubes were made for this episode, with more added with CGI later on. I want a cube. I bet that they absolutely sell it on Etsy, don't they?
Yeah, you could probably find them. You could probably find the actual props on eBay.
I want a cube to stop my heart.
Well, I can get you if you want, you know.
Yay! The Doctor and Amy's conversation outside the Tower of London couldn't be filmed on location due to the London 2012 Olympics going on at the time. So the scene was shot in the studio in Cardiff and combined with other background footage later on. Nice. You certainly can't tell. The ending of the episode had to be reworked and reshot on set, as well as the Shakri being made into a hologram, which resulted in unexpected visual effects costs due to the unprofessional behaviour of one of the actors, who refused to film a lot of the scenes. Bits and pieces of their usable footage that was shot was cobbled together for the final episode. And that's where we get that clusterfuck at the end.
God.
Man. The episode features cameos from Professor Brian Cox and Lord Alan Sugar, both longtime fans of the programme. Lord Sugar's cameo was filmed on the set of The Apprentice, with director Douglas McKinnon standing in as the person who was fired. Which is great. I love that cameo. So
but I like the cameo, and I like that it's in there, but the cubes have been there for a year. No one's going to succeed at selling them at this point.
Exactly.
You can get them off the street for free. Like, what's the point?
He wants them to be bad at the tasks.
God, yeah.
Even when he gives them proper tasks, they still fail. So you might as well just give them.
Yeah, might as well just give them unwinnable ones.
Yeah.
Oh,
so there you go. Those are some fun facts for you.
Lovely, excellent fun facts. All that remains for Power of 3 is to rank the episode out of 10. What are you giving it?
This one's really tough because it's only like that 5-minute portion that I don't like, and I generally really like the rest.
Yeah.
So I can't be like too harsh on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still kind of torn. But the overall plot doesn't make sense. And I think I will go 7.5.
Interesting. I've gone 6.5.
Oh wow.
Okay. Well, I mean, I like all the stuff I like, but as you said, you know, there's not a story there. If it was just like, if they just kept this episode with the Doctor, he just needs to fix the TARDIS and there's no alien threat, that probably would have been better. And they probably would have
said it was boring.
Well, yeah, but you could have had more of a, like, you know, you could have had more of the character stuff. You wouldn't have had to worry about having this alien plot over there. Maybe you could still introduce Unit and say the Doctor has to go to Unit to find the pieces of the thing he needs. You know, maybe an espionage type thing where he breaks in and then he meets Kate and he doesn't know who she is and he's, you know, whatever. But, you know, I think that probably would have been it. If it was more focused on the character and less on the villain, then yeah, fair enough. But at the same time, I know it's hard to say that because they didn't know the guy was going to be a prick before they started filming. So in hindsight, you know, if they knew that, then they could have worked something out and they could have done something else. But
yeah, we can understand why it ended up very messy at the end, but that doesn't ignore the fact that sadly it's very messy.
Yeah, it's like a 6.5 with an asterisk. You know, there's reasons why this isn't as good as it could be outside of it just being like a generic bad episode like we've had before. It's an unfortunate 6.5, I think, for me. Just because I don't think if I'm watching these episodes again, I'm still probably not going to come back and watch this over the other ones in this series, because the other ones are more well-rounded stories that I'm probably going to want to go and watch and enjoy more.
Yeah.
This is one where I very much might be like, I'm going to look at a clip of this episode rather than the whole episode. But that's just me. Next week, however, or at least next time we do this, episode 5 of series 7, the Angels take
an eventful episode 5. Nothing happens in episode 5.
Nothing happens in an episode 5, except when it's the mid-season finale.
Wait, what?
Which this one is. So yeah, this sees Amy, Rory, and the Doctor arrive in Manhattan, and eventually get.
I was about to say, is it Manhattan? And I remember what the episode's called.
New York City.
You really are the most devious angel in New York City. I'm making that meme.
Yeah, with the Statue of Liberty instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's angels. Rory gets sent back to this like angel like feeding ground, basically.
Battery farm, isn't it?
Yeah, where they just like take humans and just stick them in the hotel, knowing they can't leave, and then they just send them back again.
Yeah, they just keep sending them back and back and back.
Yeah, so it's horrifying. It's terrible.
It's awful.
It's horrible. And there's a whole paradox element in there which they introduce with Amy reading this book, which turns out is written by River, who's back for this episode. Makes sense to have her back for an episode where her kids, parents are dying.
Her kids? Oh, God.
Her parents are dying, so it kind of makes sense to have her back for this one. Absolute emotional powerhouse performances from everyone involved, I think. That'll be confirmed next week, but I imagine this is a heartbreaking one to rewatch. What are you expecting, and what do you remember from this one, except for the how the Statue of Liberty somehow manages to walk across to New York and be like, "Hi."
People are busy in New York.
Yeah, just don't see the Statue of Liberty coming at them.
Well, for the split second that maybe no one's watching it, think how quick it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
People just need to not be looking at it for about a second, and it can get halfway across.
There is that, but yeah.
It's one of those things where fans are like, "What if the Statue of Liberty was a weeping angel?" And the writers went, "I'm going to listen to that."
Yeah, it's a big thing of Moffat going, any statue could be an angel, and then even this statue,
fucking statue,
even this big one. Next time
we kill it at the end, so it's fine.
There'll be one in
back to where it was supposed to be.
Yeah, there'll be one in Brazil, and it's the Christ the Redeemer statue, and it just comes down. Oh
Christ!
Christ, no. Just launching at it.
I hope they do a sequel where that's the case. Amazing.
All the big worldwide statues just come alive. Yes. Nelson from the top of Nelson's column just climbs down.
That would be so good.
Oh, anyone.
Yeah. We'll see.
Anyway,
we'll see.
Yes.
But anyway, I expect to be emotionally traumatized, as I was when I first watched this. It's funny, when this aired, my parents were on holiday, so just me and my sister. Her birthday was the 24th. This aired on the 29th. It was a Saturday, obviously. So she had a birthday party. She had all her friends over. And I kicked them all out of the living room so I could watch this episode.
Good.
And then afterwards, I'm like, you can come back in now. And I played Mario Kart with some of them. They were very nice. I was just there holding back the tears, trying to hit my blue shell
through the tears.
But yeah, I just remember like
really
dreading this episode. I was dreading this episode for so long when they announced their departure.
Yeah.
And I think it's brilliant. I love having the Weeping Angels back.
The cherub babies.
Yeah, the creepy fucking cherub babies. They're still doing like new things with them and everything with that, and all the paradoxes going on. I think it all comes together really nicely, and I think it's cool that it was a mutual decision for Amy and Rory to leave at this point anyway. And I'm glad that it was Karen Gillan's idea to like, I want Weeping Angels to get us, please. And it's fun that they kind of listened and like brought them back again. And until Village of the Angels, which was coming up to 2 years ago, this was their last time the Weeping Angels were the main ballad.
Yeah, so we technically saw them in Matt Smith's last one, didn't we? When they got by a mirror, suckers,
idiots. So yeah, I like that. They left quite a long gap in between that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm looking forward.
Unless you count Class.
Well, that was a cameo at the end of
Yeah,
a series that doesn't get.
That's
They're in it
right.
for literally 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I guess they would have been the main antagonist of series
Yeah.
2, but it didn't happen. And aren't we blessed? But yes, I'm very excited for this one. It's one of my favorites, I think. So I am excited to be hurt all over again and re-experience the pain of but 11 years ago. Simpler time in 2012. So yeah, should be exciting. And I am sad, to reach the end of Amy Morley's time as the longest serving companions at this point. But also,
yeah, there's no one coming up that you're a big fan of, so I don't know what you're gonna do next.
It's not like I now have my
favorite
Doctor.
End here, so
it's not like I have my favorite Doctor and favorite companion together for a couple of weeks now. Certainly not. So 10 actually. But yeah, it's going to be a glorious few months. But yeah, I'm very excited for the era of Jenna Coleman too. I mean, it never left me, but it will come to Shouting into the Void at long last after Assembly of Daleks, briefly giving us a taste. So yeah, I am excited to check this one out. I think it's going to be sad, but very, very good. So yes, we shall see. But I feel like I watched this fairly recently, and I'm like, I watch reactions to this episode all the time because I'm like, good, cry. Because when people don't know that it's their last one, it's great. So like completely, they have no idea it was a mid-season finale or anything. So the rug is well and truly swept from their feet. It's brilliant. So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I'm looking forward to checking it out again.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yes, so that should be back next weekend or this weekend. Coming up, because I think this probably go out on Monday, so this weekend, unless they release a trailer, which is likely. They're doing some viral marketing now, and there's hints that maybe it'll be during Coronation weekend that we're doing a trailer. Maybe it's Eurovision weekend.
I want to interrupt the Coronation like a breaking news broadcast, and it's like, trailer.
Could you imagine?
Literally the moment, like the super important bit is just interrupt.
Moment the crown's getting lowered onto the head.
Yeah, Graham Norton pops up and like Doctor Who trailer.
Yeah, God, could you imagine? But yeah, so it could be Coronation weekend, it could be Eurovision weekend, which is the weekend after. It could be that we get a sequence of different things, or we might finish recording this now and we might go out and they might have tweeted it at 7 p.m.
That's true. So there have already been leaks apparently of like the air dates for the 3 specials. So
yes,
maybe they're just like they're doing this now. I'm like, well, it's out there. Let's just confirm it.
Yeah. So we will see. It could be that this video is delayed until the midweek if there is a trailer out we finish, because that will be the more important and pressing issue. But either way, this will come out. You will be watching this, and you will watch our review of Angels Take Manhattan whenever that does come out in the near future.
Look forward to the smiling, weeping angel.
Yes,
happy episode.
God, it certainly is a happy episode. But yes, that'll be it for now. Goodbye.
Bye.